Conference will now be recorded. This conference will now be recorded.
All right, I think we're good to go ahead. Good evening. It is 5:59 p.m. This is the Belchertown Zoning Board of Appeals. It is Wednesday, December 17th. Tonight is the agenda, which was recently amended. We are addressing the main item, which is a continuance, which is the application from Kayla Busse, DBA Kayla & Co. Inc., appealing a zoning enforcement officer decision regarding 145-68A, stating the applicant was in violation of the Belchertown bylaw 145-24A, the breeding, raising, or keeping of animals on less than 40,000 square feet minimum. The applicant lot is 12,529 square feet, located at 11 Sunnycrest Lane, map 271, parcel 50, zoning district AGA. Additionally, we have, which will follow, regular business discussion regarding a letter of interest from a zoning board of appeals applicant. So we will, as part of this, since this is a continuance, just as an explanation, we will not be rereading everything. There was certain information that was submitted on Monday, which I think is important to be read into the record. It is not overly complex, it's not too much to be read into the record, so I think it's important that it is part of the public record here. So I will be reading that into the record once we get into the meeting, and then we will open it up for the public meeting. Then we will close it, and then we'll go forward with formally making the decision. So, just with that as the background, again, if there's any public comment, everything comes to the board, no one addresses each other. And if there are any questions that the board poses, we ask that you stick to the specific topic that is posed to you. So that's just kind of a little background. I am Jennifer Sharrow. I'm the chair of the board. We have my two fellow board members here and present and voting. We have Wayne Versace and Darlene Wiley. Willie. Okay, so I gotta get that down. And we are, I guess, ready to begin. Would anyone like to make a motion to?
Did you have anything to read in
No,
first?
I guess I'm reading in first. I was looking at that. Let me read this in. There is an email that was exchanged between the applicant, Kayla Busse, and the zoning enforcement officer, Paul Adsma, dated November 14th in an exchange. Additionally, Doug Albertson, the town planner is also in this exchange. So it starts with Kayla Busse stating, yeah, that's the timeline. Good morning, Paul. My husband spoke to Jackie this morning about our subdivision's open space this morning. Regretfully, we understand we are not allowed to put up a hockey rink, but we appreciate your position. However, as we are learning the importance of clarity, would you please put your decision in writing for our records? Paul responded, Kayla, the town planner, responded to your question below. And then Doug responded, the subdivision open space is owned by the town of Belchertown in the care and control of the Conservation Commission under the requirements of the Massachusetts Constitution, Article 97. To change any use of Article 97 land, a 2/3 vote of the legislature would be required. The subdivision was permitted as an open space community development, which allowed for smaller lots in exchange for the protected open space. To construct anything on the open space would violate the subdivision approval and the Constitution and would be considered trespass by the property owner, the town of Belchertown. There is additionally submitted a Kayla Busse, DBA Kayla & Co. Inc. written statement. ZBA hearing is dated October 15th, 2025. Dear members of the board, we want to clarify one structural issue that is complicated how zoning applies to our property because it affects how the underlying bylaw functions in practice. Our lot is located in an open space community development that was approved roughly 20 years ago. As part of that approval, individual lots were intentionally reduced in size, including ours, with the understanding that the remaining land would be preserved as open space. That design choice made sense at the time and was part of the subdivision's original zoning intent. In practice, however, the preserved open space has never been developed or made available in any form of resident use over the past 2 decades. We have now been formally advised by the town that this land is Article 97 land owned by the municipality, that residents may not use it for any purpose, that even temporary or low impact use would be considered trespass. We've also been advised that there is no mechanism to petition for use of that land. The result is that we live on a significantly reduced lot without access to the open space that was intended to balance that reduction, while at the same time being subject to zoning provisions that assume a traditional agricultural A parcel of roughly 40,000 square feet. Neither the original zoning model nor the intended OSCD balance is actually available in practice. Massachusetts courts have long held that hardship analysis must be grounded in the actual conditions of the land as it exists, rather than theoretical zoning assumptions. Ferranti v. Board of Appeals of Northampton, 1962. We raise this not as a challenge to the OSCD itself, and not to suggest any fault on the part of the town or its staff, but simply to explain why the literal application of the bylaw creates ambiguity and hardship when applied to this specific property. Courts have also recognized that hardship is not self-created when it arises from prior subdivision design or regulatory structure, rather than from actions of the current owner. Old v. Board of Appeals versus New Bedford, 1968, and that zoning should not be enforced in a way that defeats its intended purpose through impractical results. Josephs v. Board of Appeals of Brookline, 1972. For that reason, while we believe our status as a federally recognized 501c3 educational nonprofit brings us within the protections of the Dover Amendment, we also believe the structural condition is relevant context for the board's analysis. Under Massachusetts law, zoning regulations may limit, but may not prohibit or unreasonably restrict bona fide educational uses except where necessary to protect public health or safety. Radcliffe College v. Cambridge, 1966. The Bible Speaks v. Board of Appeals of Lenox, 1979. Our request is therefore narrow and practical. We are not seeking access to the open space, nor are we asking the board to alter the subdivision design. We're simply asking that our use be evaluated in light of the actual conditions that exist today, rather than assumptions that no longer reflect how the subdivision functions. We would like to thank the chair and members of the Zoning Board of Appeals for the time, attention, and care you've given to this matter. We recognize the responsibility you carry in balancing the interests of the community, the intent of the zoning framework, and the specific facts of each request. At Kayla and Co., this petition reflects something we care deeply about, providing meaningful educational and therapeutic opportunities for children with exceptionalities whose needs are not always fully met within traditional public school settings. Our work is grounded in responsibility, structure, and respect for the community in which we live. We've already demonstrated our willingness and will continue to reach out and work collaboratively with the town of Belchertown and the commissions associated with our work to address health and safety considerations through our documented management plan, ongoing oversight, and periodic inspections to ensure consistent implementation. We also remain committed to minimizing any potential nuisance through the mitigation strategies already provided, as well as through any additional reasonable and legally supported measures the board may find appropriate, including reasonable limitations on flock size, so long as such measures do not wholly impede our ability to carry out our educational mission across both our secular and non-secular curriculum pathways. Finally, we are willing to accept logical and legally supported conditions, including reasonable limitations on flock size, so long as such conditions do not entirely prevent us from carrying out our educational mission across both our secular and non-secular curriculum pathways. We appreciate the board's thoughtful consideration and the opportunity to engage in this process in good faith. And then the references, which I will not read, are short summaries of the cases that are cited. So those are the documents that were submitted as part of the ongoing matter. Okay, now there's no further documents in this matter to be read into the record. Now, would anyone like to open the public portion of the hearing?
Yes, I make a motion to open the public portion of the meeting.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Public portion is open. Would anyone like to provide additional commentary?
Just a brief statement.
Sure, please state your name for the record.
Yes, ma'am. I made sure to put it in here so I can get it. Good evening, Madam Chairwoman and members of the Belchertown Zoning Board of Appeals. My name is Bradley Williams. I'm a resident of Belchertown, and I've been authorized to speak this evening on behalf of Kayla and Co. Ms. Kayla Busse is out of state on business trip that cannot be rescheduled. We appreciate the time and care the board has given to this request. Our posture throughout this process has remained straightforward. Kayla and Co. is a federally recognized 501c3 educational nonprofit. The primary use is educational and therapeutic in nature. And we understand that under the Dover Amendment, zoning may reasonably regulate that use, but may not prohibit it or unreasonably restrict it. USCD conditions affecting our lot are not offered as a substitute to this framework. There is a relevant context for how the zoning functions as applies to this specific parcel. Some might say this request creates precedent or extends beyond what zoning allows. We'd respond that the bylaw governs standard situations. The role of the Zoning Board of Appeals is not to rewrite the black letter zoning, but resolve edge cases where those standards do not function as intended when applied to a particular property. This request is limited to this parcel and this nonprofit educational use. Some might say the dimensional characteristics of the lot themselves are the reason for denial. We respond that the lot size is a product of the OSCD design, and that the open space intended to balance that reduction is not available for any use. That creates ambiguity in how the agricultural A standards apply in practice, which is relevant context for the board's analysis, but does not displace the Dover framework. Some might also raise concerns about health, safety, or nuisance. We respond that Dover expressly allows reasonable regulation to address those concerns, and we've addressed them through our documented management plan, ongoing oversight, and our willingness to accept reasonable legally supported conditions. We believe that context is fully reflected in the extensive written record we've provided. This evening, Kayla and Co. is happy to answer any direct questions from the board that the board may still be considering. In the absence of additional questions, we'll defer our time back to the board in public comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other comments from the public? Dan?
Yeah, hi. Dan Busse. Again, according to the committee, town committee handbook,
I need to identify any other committees that I'm on the planning board and on the animal control review board. However, I'm not here representing those functionalities tonight. I'm here representing myself. And some of this is going to be a repetitive argument, but since the arguments in favor have been repetitive, I think I have a reason to state the negatives once again. This was originally given as something that fell under the town right to farm bylaw. There is nothing in the right to farm bylaw that excuses any dimensional zoning for agricultural operations. I know this very well because I was on the Ag Commission when that particular bylaw was written, and I wrote it. And I know it's not there. It's never intended to be used for that purpose. It was just to support farming in town, not to give them the ability to override any kind of zoning controls. There's been talk about the Dover Amendment. We've been through that also. The Dover Amendment and the case law that goes with it clearly allows towns to have dimensional requirements for zoning. It does not override zoning, right? It overrides use. So you can have that use, but that doesn't give you the permission to negate the dimensional zoning on particular parcels of property. Firm case law. I don't know what they're citing there, but that's not the Dover Amendment. They keep citing their nonprofit corporation. What has that got to do with anything? A nonprofit corporation doesn't give anybody a right to override local zoning, right? That's a federal standing for tax purposes. So corporations can get nonprofit tax status, so the money in their organizations is not taxed under federal law, and it allows people that are making donations to that organization to write their donations off on their own individual income tax returns. I've done many nonprofit corporation organizations. I know what it is. You're completely misstating, what protections you think this is giving you. There are none there. That is entirely in the federal spectrum. It's got nothing to do with local zoning controls. I don't know why we're talking. The other thing that I brought up at the last time we spoke was we've got domestic livestock dimensional bylaw controls because people that originally crafted those wanted to have some control on how much land was going to be available if people were going to have domestic livestock. And domestic livestock are not just chickens. If you want to say that, well, they can have chickens and, well, we're going to do it for just this operation, just these people, you've opened the door regardless. Because the next person to come along is saying, well, what's the difference between them and me? I want to have horses on a tenth of an acre. I want to have sheep on a tenth of an acre, 30, 40. Let's see how far we can go with this. There are very good and sound reasons why those controls were initially established in town. It's a clear standard. This is not something where you're reading it and you're trying to interpret what's going on. It is a clear standard. And they're asking you to deviate from it because somehow their operation is unique and special. No, it's not. They're no different from anybody else that wants to have chickens or any other domestic livestock on their property, and they're on a substandard lot. I don't understand, why the argument is going any further than that. They're not going to get special treatment, are they? Just because, you like the nature of the operation that they're carrying out. I mean, yeah, they're doing something nice. They're on a substandard lot. They should pick a bigger piece of land and then have it on a legit size operation and do this, above board. And I remind everybody how this came about. They didn't come asking for permission. They went ahead and did it. And then there was a complaint. The zoning control officer went out there and gave them a cease and desist and is trying to stop them from doing something that's clearly a nuisance in that neighborhood. They created a hardship. And now they throw themselves, for you and say, well, we need to be protected from the consequence of our own actions is disingenuous. They did it. They need to be stopped. Or you're gonna have the entire zoning scheme for domestic livestock controls in this town abrogated. Because it's gonna be all over the place. Everybody's gonna have chickens, and they're gonna have this, and they're gonna have that, and where does it all end? We have controls for a reason. So we have people that read the bylaws and carry them, and know what they mean, and then carry them out. Not just decide that they're going to set themselves up as being special and ignore them. And go right down and do whatever they feel like doing. Because that is what you're going to get if you start doing this stuff. You're gonna have people that just ignore the bylaws. Because they're gonna say that, well, I'll just go before the zoning board of appeals and I'll plead, and they'll make an exception for me, they'll make an exception for them, make an exception for another. The board is not here to make exceptions, it's to carry out the zoning scheme and allow reasonable relief for people based on a limited set of physical conditions that go with the property that are clearly outlined in the bylaw scheme. That's the boundaries that you're supposed to be working in. We're outside of those boundaries. Where are you gonna go with this?
Thank you. Any other comments from the public?
Ready to close the public portion?
Ready? I am ready. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay.
Make a motion to close the public portion.
I second the motion to close the public portion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. There is no more public participation. What we are being presented with, we had an application come before us. I think it's, the application that came before us was a little while ago. And I think it's important to reference back to the application that came before us because it kind of touched on a few different things. And we can get lost in some of the supplemental materials that were submitted, the ins and outs of the case law and the Dover Amendment. And all of that is important, but our job is to rule within our powers. There are certain communities that within their bylaws do have Dover Amendment, specifics that say, if there's a Dover Amendment challenge, you go here. Where that is not in the Belchertown bylaws, we have to, it has come to us under a appeal from the zoning enforcement officer. And so that is what we are looking at. My reading of the petition that came before us seems to touch on 4 things. Maybe those weren't the specifics, but just as a comprehensive response, I want to respond to all of the things that were presented. In my reading of the document, it seems to touch on 2 elements of the Dover Amendment, seeking, and again, so what the Dover Amendment says. It references the Mass General Law 40A Section 3, which 40A Section 3 is a very interesting portion of the state law. This is where most recently the new ADU kind of exception is located. There's exceptions for zoning for utilities and solar power. So it's a very kind of interesting, kind of broad provision. The original language starts with agriculture. So the original language, and one that is important here, and one of the elements I think we need to address, that I think was brought up, is the agricultural element. And so the Dover Amendment in the first paragraph says, and I've shortened this down to only the applicable, is that no zoning ordinance or bylaw shall unreasonably regulate or require a special permit for the use of land for the primary purpose of commercial agriculture. And then there's an exception where there are size limitations of 5 and 2 acres. So important things are that there is size requirements and the focus on commercial agriculture. So here's kind of step number 1 that I think I would like to address as a board about whether this portion of the Dover Amendment. And so when we look at Dover Amendments, it says local zoning does not apply if Dover applies. It means they're accepted. It means what this says, no zoning or ordinance or bylaw shall unreasonably regulate or require a special permit for the use of land. So we can't, it trumps local rules. So I'd like to discuss whether what's being presented to us meets this Dover Amendment agricultural provision.
And going back to what you were saying about the Dover Amendment there and the size constraints. What was that again? So it's a 2 to 5
So it says that
acres?
it it must, there, not a constraint, a minimum.
Minimum. Okay.
So to sell, so if you're having like a farm stand, you have to have a minimum of 2 acres. And then for a commercial, like farm operation, it's 5 acres is what that provision says. So no zoning ordinance can regulate commercial agriculture provided you have at least 5 or 2 acres of land.
We do not have.
Or such does not have.
Right, we do not have on this application. And the other part you mentioned about the commercial, it's in regards to commercial properties.
The agricultural use.
Right.
And so, I mean, we do talk about 501c3 and an educational use. So I guess that would be not commercial, not for profit, essentially the opposite of non-profit.
Right.
So we have size, it doesn't meet the size or the commercial status. So there's no, I guess I would say, it wouldn't meet the exception under the agricultural 48 section 3 Dover provision, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Then kind of the more, the one that gets addressed a little, in greater detail in the supplemental information presented to us by the petitioner is this educational. So this is where, and again, so I shortened the 40A provision so that because it touches on both religious and there's also like state use of educational. So I kind of cut out so that it'll only talk about educational use in here. So this is what the 40A educational one kind of says in a concentrated way. That no zoning ordinance or bylaw shall regulate or restrict the interior area of a single-family residential building, nor shall any such ordinance or bylaw prohibit, regulate, or restrict the use of land or structures for educational purposes on land leased by a nonprofit educational corporation, provided, however, that such land may be subject to reasonable regulations concerning the bulk and height of structures and determining yard sizes, lot areas, setbacks, open space, parking, and building coverage requirements. So that's kind of what we're working with
Thank you.
here. And so, again, so this is educational, the state zoning law coming in and saying local bodies cannot pass, cannot apply zoning that would restrict educational use, provided that there are reasonable, regulations that apply. And then case law is confusing. And adds additional elements that is unclear. And then the real fun part, what I would have loved in an ideal world, which sometimes happens with zoning, would have been if there was a case on point. However, this is a novel situation because it combines an agricultural use with an educational use, where health and safety issues are at play, where the lot sizes, and I think this is important, that when you look at 145-24 in our bylaws, that when you look at the breeding, raising, or keeping of animals, this specific provision, it talks about how it's allowed as a matter of right, subject to the following health and safety regulations. You don't see that language used in, our setback requirements. You don't see that language used in, home occupation, requirements.
Mhm.
It's a unique kind of provision that ties health and safety outside of what zoning board typically looks at. We don't like some of the things we touch on and look at that, but we often don't. It's unique language. This is a unique kind of situation that arises. The case law, an important element that also arises, goes to the primary use. Of the building, the structure, the land, and they look at kind of there's a few different elements and kind of time is one, purpose, kind of just like overall, just primary use. I didn't do a poll of that in front of me. But if I could confirm, just to ask,
Yes, ma'am.
could you confirm for me, because my notes weren't fully clear, what kind of the hours of operations of the nonprofit are?
Yeah, so due to the nature of the nonprofit, everything is schedule-based, so there's not a set amount of hours or parking, those things. Everything is by appointment, and we'd be having one family or to two at a time by appointment through families. So we'd only ever have one car at a time, and there wouldn't be a set of like operating hours, but we would commit to, again, reasonable regulations. And if hours of operation are an important factor to this, then we would listen to the board's recommendation.
Based on your proposed budgeting or whatnot, what are you expecting, how many families do you propose to, do you expect to serve, that you have, interest in, like how many hours per week do you anticipate, having families utilizing the services in the nonprofit?
Per week or even per day?
No, sure. We're, as mentioned in the first meeting, the initial phases for clients was scheduled originally for this spring, and everything got moved forward due to the issue that was brought at hand. And so at this point, we're utilizing the animals for the educational work. We're taking them to high schools. We took animals to Holyoke High School, brought them back for where they are, did our presentations there, and we haven't had people on the property yet due to this current situation.
Right.
And so it would not be wise of me to speak to just random numbers so much as there's a little bit of wonky here too around, it's not just on the property. The mobile coops and the animals have been leased for that portion from Kayla and Co. And they remain within the confines of the lease. When we have the appointments for on-site work, because it's a local child or family who would like the services and we can work with them, then by all means, we would do that again by appointment. That's once a week is typical for an individual client. Then the rest of the time, animals are taken away and brought back. So most of the time, that portion doesn't affect the direct community or law.
Okay, I had from my notes the last meeting.
Yep.
Just like very, no more than like 1 hour, like one family, 1 hour per day.
And that would be a restriction that absolutely we would keep to. If that's required, a second family wanted to schedule on the same day, then whether it's.
That wasn't something that we were asking to be implemented. That was information that was really provided.
Yep, no, absolutely. If it's something that matters to the process, we'd be willing to work with the zoning.
And the animals aren't gonna make.
Can you guys-
Dan, no,
You open.
Dan, no,
You
this
open.
is not
Direct
public.
question to the.
This is not
applicant.
public. This
Well,
was,
maybe
this was a specific question to the applicant regarding hours of operation that go to an element
Intended use.
of the use regarding application of Dover Amendment.
Jennifer, could I clarify the hours too?
Yes, I would love that.
Perfect. So, I just last night I scheduled, because I'm out of town this week. I have 3 clients next week, Monday and Tuesday. So I have 2 on Monday and 1 on Tuesday that are coming. Obviously, I can't divulge their private information, but 2 of them were just released from inpatient care. And so it's part of their transition plan to come. So we do have clients steadily, steadily starting to come in now. I know the weather's a little off, so it's hard to get a ton of work, but we have currently about 5 people or 5 different families that will be coming once a week into the spring. We're hoping, obviously, to increase that number as it gets warmer.
Okay. Thank you for that information. Can I also ask when the coop was erected? When was it built?
In August.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are, no, the question portion is done. It was a specific question.
So it looks like the maximum is like 5 hours a week as of now. As of
And that is, you know, this, so the, my reading, and again, the case law is a little confusing. But that, you know, there's a lot of back and forth about whether or not, or how the town, how local, you know, what it means for local control, how, what's reasonable, what's not reasonable, what are, you know, what are the specifics, how much can we get into it? And I, you know, but none of that applies if the primary purpose of the building, the primary use, not use, but like the primary, it's not used all the time as for
Agriculture.
educational.
Right, agriculture or education.
Yeah.
Right.
5 hours a week when it is otherwise a chicken coop located on a single family property, doesn't feel like a primary educational use. It feels like chickens on someone's single family property,
Multiple chickens
multiple chickens on a single family property
on square footage. It's
on a reduced square
Mhm.
footage.
Yeah, I mean, to that effect, yeah, I totally agree with it. It's not the primary use of the property. I mean, it was never intended to be the primary use of that property. It was the whole reason for the open space designation was to create smaller units for houses.
I mean, it's a single family home.
Correct.
what we're hearing now about the transport of these chickens to off-site locations, to schools and so on, concerns me. The type of vehicle that's transporting them, the time of day that they're being transported, all of this is another component, as compared to what we heard, what I thought we heard originally, which is at that location. And then the other question I would have is, did I hear that there were some clients scheduled to come? Already, but aren't we under a cease of operation?
I mean,
We've never received that, a cease of operation.
Well,
You're looking at, that's the original.
yeah, this is what was issued by Paul.
Okay.
So it's just,
there's a violation.
yes, yeah,
Right.
so it was.
But there's a-
cease and desist.
Right,
But there's the
Things like
scheduling of
that.
clients to come. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, so, I mean, it's just, again,
Operation.
a lot of it goes to, this is outside zoning.
Yes,
This
yes.
is health and safety,
Yes.
you know, is this, you know, would, let's focus, okay, so we are on,
Right, I think we ruled that out, you know,
Whether-
based
yeah.
on the intentional use of the property. I think it doesn't meet.
that 40A, section 3,
Mhm.
the educational provision, we're gonna say, because it's not for this structure, the primary use is not educational. 40A, Section 3, Dover Amendment does not apply. So then we move on to the other portions of the application, which there are, again, it was a little unclear. It seemed like it was a variance, but both the special permit and the variance addendums were completed. So let's look at both of them, just to be clear. So the ZBA must approve special permits where specific elements are met. For kind of where this didn't fully address the special permitness of it all, we often see, use special permits within the schedule of uses. There are certain special permits that must be brought before the planning board versus the zoning board. So this is kind of, again, in that weird, it came before us, so we're gonna address it. So this is, we'll just call it what it is, the keeping of animals, keeping of a flock of fowl on a parcel of land that is less than 40,000 square feet, as required under the bylaws. So, the first element that must be met is that it will not be detrimental to the established or future character of the town and neighborhood. The element that is argued for in the application, which was right into the record originally, but I'll highlight it again here, is that the flock will be limited, screened, and responsibly managed to remain fully compatible with neighborhood character, i.e. 40 bird maximum, solid fencing along the butters if requested, no roosters after 7:30 p.m., the automatic solar doors. There will be professional oversight from the board of directors as well as the board of health. How do we feel about this first element?
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing in the bylaws that addresses, purposefully, I think, there's nothing that addresses it because, and if it's under 40,000 square feet,
You can't have
you
it.
can't. So,
And
so there's
for-
little to look at because they've already kind of, laid it out in the bylaws, I believe. And I mean, this is going to be the same thing for the variance as for the special permit. I'm sure we'll get to let's stick with the special permit now.
I concur.
Yeah, and I would like to note, I did look around at what are the other towns doing around us to address something like this, because Massachusetts is a right to farm, community-based state. And most of the other towns surrounding us do get more specific, but it's always with permit. And it's always, I don't want to say always, but most of the time it is through the health department. And they do limit the amount of birds. So unfortunately, we don't have any, that was just extracurricular. That was just wondering what are the neighboring towns doing? However, in our case, we do not have any further details for residential and keeping small, I guess, farming elements like birds or rabbits or guinea pigs, I don't know, whatever, whatnot. We just don't have it. So we can't look, we got nothing to look at. You know, unfortunately, it was under 40,000. I mean,
Well, maybe that speaks for itself right there.
right, and I mean, right,
That's what those
exactly.
people who made
This
those
is just all extracurricular, looking into stuff. We don't have any of that. And I mean, maybe this is the door to, maybe someday we'll bring it up at a town meeting or something like that when, you know, the town does want to get more specific as to, you know, okay to have a couple chickens or something like that, you know, but again,
Right
we
now,
can
we
only,
have
we
this.
can only look at the stuff that's already written. And unfortunately, I'm just not seeing it as a special permit. I don't see, I can't find anything that would say that this situation would supersede the bylaws that are already in place.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's established as a neighborhood with small lots. If it was meant, you know, to be a neighborhood with large lots that where you could do what you wanted on your land without worrying about how it would impact your neighbors.
Then they should have been 5 acre lots or, you know, 2 to 5 acre lots, or
And I
something,
just
depending on what.
That will not be detrimental to the character of the neighborhood, like that's a particular neighborhood.
Well, this is why the law was written. The town of Belchertown zoning bylaws says 40,000 square feet for breeding, raising, or keeping of animals. Requires minimum.
That's the character of the town. All right, so
Well,
it feels,
especially that subdevelopment was created with that.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
townwide, yes, but
so it fails the initial element. We shall grant it only if it meets all of them. So it fails the special permit application. And then we got to the variance. Which again, the variance, every single element must be met. The element number 1, circumstances exist which relate to the soil condition, shape, or topography of the land or structures, and especially affect such land or structures, but do not generally affect the zoning district in which they are located. The application, the hardship arises from the subdivision created lot size, not owner action, and the case law. I have done a lot of reading about variances because we encounter variances all the time. We do not encounter Dover amendments very often. The variances come up all the time.
going back to what we were saying before about the Dover amendment, and it didn't really pertain to.
And I did not read bold, but I read a lot on variances.
So these are the references that they had in their statement, right?
Yeah. And bold is the one that seemed, you know, the summary says that, you know, it's a hardship about, you know, subdivisions. And I haven't read bold, but I've read a lot of cases that talk about how the circumstances exist which relate to the soil condition, shape, or topography of the land or structures, and especially affect such land or structures, but do not generally affect the zoning district in which they are located. And that the interpretation of that language means that the plot of land that the individual applicant has is different from their neighbors. That there is a unique particular aspect to their land that makes them different from their neighbors, that means they should get a variance. That it's, there's something about them that, maybe the subdivision was created and they ended up with this wonky piece of land that is different from their neighbors. That is my understanding. That is how I have ruled and like weighed in and talked about in this body for 10 years about variances, that it's the specific elements of that particular land must be different. That do not generally affect the zoning district in which they are located. All of these plots of land are small, every single one of them.
Yeah.
They're all the same. And so it fails. It fails the initial.
The topography of the land is. Yeah, what were the other ones? The
So
hardship, was that one?
Literal enforcement of the chapter will result in substantial hardship. The coop was built in August. It's a single family home. It's used as a single family home. Primary use is as a single family home. So this is not it will not, as discussed, it will not, and it's also the substantial hardship. I forget my elements of that. There's something about that too.
About the financial hardship?
Yeah, there's something about
The property is keeping you from.
that relates, that there's something about substantial hardship that relates also back to the soil condition, shape and topography of the land. I didn't get to that, so I was focusing on number one.
Okay, I jumped ahead.
No,
I thought we
no.
kind of wrapped that
Yeah,
first part.
well,
up, saying there wasn't really anything.
Well,
specific to the
variances
property.
have to meet all of them.
Well, that is true right
And
there.
so where
I
it
mean,
failed, the first one, we don't really have to go through all of them. I mean, we can't, because then C, again, general intent and purpose of this chapter, being the bylaw, is that the keeping and raising of animals shall be on 40,000 square feet or more.
There are a number of homes under construction there to be sold.
Mhm, yeah.
And how many are sold?
I don't know.
I don't know.
This is,
But it would be
yeah.
expected to be sold, or otherwise there will be an issue with unsold homes in a subdivision.
There could be.
There could be.
Yeah.
And this was a subdivision that's been going on for some time because of other issues, correct? Land issues?
Yes, there's shale. My understanding is there's shale,
Well, ledge.
ledge,
Mhm.
it's blasting. It's been going on for 10 plus years.
It's a lot of extra work. Yeah. Takes a while to get through that.
Nice to finally see houses go up instead of just empty pits of land.
Right. But going
So,
back to why that is,
yes,
that it could affect the,
Potential buyers.
or the.
And also the topography, the feces, we discussed that a couple of meetings ago.
Right, runoff and.
Runoff, that's right.
Yeah. But yeah, the intended use of the neighborhood itself,
Residential.
is residential, right, and it could affect the neighborhood. So compiling all of those aspects that we just went over, I don't think we're able to find anything that we are going to be able to grant and a variance or a special permit or the property just adhering to the Dover Amendment. I'm just not seeing it.
I agree.
Should we be making a motion? I mean, or we got more to talk about?
I do
I
not.
do not.
All right, well then, so how are we making the motion? Because it's
Yeah.
literally everything. We
So
originally got it from the notice from Paul, right, the building inspector there. And this was notice of violation, right? Yeah, violation, this is just a notice of the violation. Which I guess brought it to us as a variance and or special permit. That was just brought to us. So should we just say both?
If you want to be thorough, I'd also throw an appeal in there. So appeal, special permit, and variance.
Appeal, special permits.
Yeah, that's, I guess zoning enforcement officer notice, appeal of the EO notice.
Appeal of the zoning enforcement officer's decision is how it was.
In the application.
Right, like that's what's been on all the agendas and stuff right here.
Smart.
So I make a motion to deny the special permit as well as the variance and uphold the zoning enforcement officer's statement of violation to Kayla and Company. Based on our discussion previously about Dover, as well as not meeting the requirements for a variance and or special permit. And again, to uphold the zoning enforcement officer's notice of violation. Is that everything you need for it?
Let's get a little specific. Deny the special permit. For failure to
For failure to meet the minimum
for failure to prove that such permit would not, I'm writing this all down, be detrimental to be established for this. And then deny the variance for failure to prove that circumstances exist, blah, blah, blah. Uphold the CEO's decision regarding violation of 145-24. In that no exception under MGL 40A section 3 is applicable. You got that? Deny special permit for this reason.
So I make a motion to deny the special permit for failure to prove that such permit would not be detrimental
For this reason.
for the future character of the town and the neighborhood. Is that enough, right?
Looking at
Right. Also to deny the variance for failure to prove that circumstances exist which relate to the soil conditions, shape, or topography of the land or structures, and especially affect such land or structures, but do not generally affect the zoning district in which they are located. And also to uphold the zoning enforcement officer's decision regarding the violation of 145-24, and that no exception under the MGL 40A Section 3 is applicable in this case.
I second that motion.
all in favor?
Aye.
So passed. The decision will be finalized and documented, and additional information will be forthcoming. So you'll get follow-up information.
I figured
from
that
us.
that would be the
Yeah,
case. Thank you,
yeah,
ma'am. I appreciate it.
absolutely. So this portion, we have some follow-up information, but this portion is over, if you'd like.
Absolutely. I'll stay over.
All right, so we have,
Thank you.
so this portion is over.
Next on the agenda.
Next on the agenda. Is the letter of interest
Two things.
for an applicant?
Two things, yeah.
Two things,
Similar. but-
similar,
Two applicants.
Mhm.
is number one. That, our Darlene would like to be a full member,
That's right, she gives a letter of intent.
formally, full-time here. And I would like to recommend that she become a full member.
I agree.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I would be honored to serve
Absolutely.
as the associate for, well, I thought longer than Abby told me. But that seems because I think the paperwork shows that there was one letter, but I think it's been a couple of years. But not many meetings.
Yeah, I mean, usually we don't. Usually we don't have that many meetings. And then,
So is there anything else we have to do for that?
I don't think so.
Just, okay.
Yeah,
Good go.
that's just a little, a less formal. The second one is another
Yes.
online volunteer submission form. Is this how we have it? It's just online?
Yeah.
We don't like publish in the paper or anything.
Oh, so I do
It
actually,
does.
so I send out
It's published.
vacancies, so it's published, but yeah, this is how people
Yeah.
go. You actually might need to vote on, it varies from committee to committee, but maybe it might be good for you guys to vote.
I mean, there's only two of us.
I know.
We vote.
With Darlene or
Yeah.
vote for the new?
For Darlene and,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, we vote.
okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Both in favor.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Are you in favor, Darlene?
Yeah, there's no
So,
quorum.
yeah.
She can't vote on herself.
Right. So,
Yeah.
majority quorum?
I feel great about it.
I don't think, recommendations.
I know.
That's-
Because usually
I mean-
just the chairs like email me and they say,
Yeah.
we voted at our meeting to recommend this
Yeah.
person, or they just say that, okay, so.
If something crazy procedural needs to happen for that, we could bring if we want to bring the new applicant on, to have a quorum, to vote for Darlene to get
Yeah.
full membership, if we have to do it
I
that
do
way.
have a question. So I feel like associate members aren't typically voting. Darlene's just been awesome and stepping up because,
She's the only one.
because we
Because we need a
needed her
quorum.
to.
Yeah.
So I don't think that hypothetically, if this person comes on, it would be as an associate, right?
Yeah.
Because you have
Correct.
three and three. So they would technically wouldn't be a voting member.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think.
Unless we had someone.
Right, unless we need
Right,
Right.
unless a repeat
the bench,
applicant.
right, the bench
Yeah,
for our
That's a
team.
good point
Right.
there. Yeah. I know.
I like to have a deep bench.
Right. More than none.
Yeah.
That's what we have right now.
Yeah.
So that goes back to, should we bring on Donna Ray Canelli?
I mean, yeah, absolutely. She has
Yeah.
a previous history of public service in, on the Ware Conservation Commission, HR director for the town of Amherst. That must have been interesting.
Mhm.
Ooh, a law degree. Ooh, let's get another lawyer.
Oh, boy. Another one.
Yep.
No, I think, yeah, I mean, everything looks great. She's, yeah, like you're saying, has plenty of experience, another perspective on matters that come to us. I think it would be great,
Yeah.
you know.
Yes. I vote,
Do we make a motion or do we just vote?
Yeah.
what do we vote? I think we just vote. I feel like it's always been in less.
Then, yeah, I vote.
Yeah.
This is
Bring her on.
associate member.
I
As an
vote,
associate.
because we're just voting.
Right, isn't that what it
Yeah,
is?
and they, I think they applied technically for
Send
the full
them
member seat,
approval.
but I'll
Clarify.
clarify with them. I'll say, this is what's now open, like, are you okay with that? And so I'll let you guys know what comes to that.
Okay.
Okay. So, yeah.
So
Unanimous. Unanimous to
that's
bring
it.
her on.
Do I have to sign, is there anything outstanding for me to sign? I don't think so.
Yeah, I need you guys to sign this.
Okay.
Sign first and close.
You can sign it after you close the
Oh.
meeting.
I make a motion to close the meeting.
I second the motion. to
All in
close the
favor?
meeting.
Aye.
Motion passed, meeting closed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.